Hello, everyone. We are going to just going to show you the additional database objects I talked about in the PowerPoint presentation. So let me go into our SQL commands window here. So again, this is our practical demonstration. I kind of gave you a theoretical demonstration in a PowerPoint, and hopefully this will give you a little bit more insight on how these work. The first one I talked about in the PowerPoint was the sequences, and if you recall, this is the syntax for creating a sequence, right? So pretty straightforward, creating a sequence. So for example, let's take a look at the orders table. So let's do select star from orders. I think that's the right table name. Let's see if that comes up. All right, so here's our orders. And you can see here we have an order number. Our last order number is 1009, right? Now, right now, if I wanted to insert a new order, I would have to explicitly insert the next order number, which would be 1010, right? After 1009, the next one would be 1010. But instead, I could create a sequence to use to create these order numbers. So let's say I'm going to create a sequence for my orders. This is what it would look like. So I'm going to create a sequence. I'm going to call it orders order number sequence, right? So that's just the name of my sequence. That's how I'm going to reference this sequence later on. It's going to increment by 1, and I'm going to start it at 1021. So the next item in the sequence will be 1022. No cycle, meaning that it's not going to cycle back around when it gets to the last number. Of course, I didn't declare what the maximum value is anyway. And no cache, meaning it's not going to cache that sequence. So let's go ahead and create that sequence. So it'll run that statement. All right, our sequence is now created. So let's take a look at our sequences. So there's a command we can run in SQL that will so if we do a select star from user sequences, this will show us a list of sequences that we have. So let's take a look. So there's my sequence, right? Wow, that's a really big max value, right? So this tells me that currently it's on 1021. So the next time I call it, it'll be on 1022, right? All right, so let's give it a try. So, and I'm just going to show you first if, let me copy and paste something here for you. So I'm going to select order number next sequence value. Now this will probably not work, right? So if I run this, it's not going to output anything because you have to select from a table, right? And really all I want to do is select the next value. I don't care, it's not in a table, right? There's no table to select from. But in Oracle, if you want to select a value and you don't have a table from which to select it, you can just use from dual, and that will basically use a fake table. So it'll output the response. So there we go. So my next value is 1021. Now watch what happens if I run this again. So I'm going to run this again. And now we're at 1022. Run it again. And I'm at 1023, right? So I was talking about that in the PowerPoint before. If I type cur val, right? So right now we're at 1023. So if I do cur val, it should show me 1023 again, right? Because it's my current value. So that's how I call that sequence value. Now let's go ahead and insert a record into orders, right? So I'm going to put in my insert statement. So I'm going to insert into orders. Now you can see here I'm going to insert an order number, but instead of just typing 1025 or whatever the next one's going to be, I'm going to let the sequence do it for me. It's going to come up with the next number. So let's do this and see if it inserts. Uh-oh. Ship data has an invalid identifier, probably because I am, wait, let's see here, order data. Let's use 1 for the ship value and see if that works. I think I found my problem. It should have been order date and ship date, not ship data and order data. So let's try that and see if it works. There we go. So it inserted 1 row. So now if I select star from my orders, and I think I can highlight this to have it selected, which is a little bit easier than deleting stuff. There we go, and if I scroll down, I do not see it because I have a maximum of 10 rows. Let me increase this to 5th to 100. Now I should see all my rows. That's a little better. So our last record is 1024. That's the one that I just inserted, right? 123 West Main Street in Atlanta, and here it is. So it used the next value in the sequence, which is exactly what we wanted. So that's how we auto-increment these numbers. Now, in other database engines, by the way, this is a lot easier. I should probably tell you that. If you're using MySQL or Microsoft SQL Server or pretty much any other database engine, you don't have to worry about creating sequences. It's kind of built into the database engine. You can just make an auto-increment field. But this is what we have to work with in Oracle, so we certainly have to do that. So let's see, we're going to, for order items, for example, so let's say I'm going to add an item to order number 1024. I already have that sequence number, so let's say programmatically I ran this insert to create my order, and now I want to add some items for that order. Instead of having to go and find that sequence number, I can just use the current value of the sequence. So now I'm going to insert into order items the current value. Oops, that failed, probably because of a typo. Let's see if we can find the typo here. Oh, it looks like we have a key constraint problem here, right? So let's take a look here. So we have the order number, then we have the ISBN, which is probably not 1, and then we have the quantity. Let me see. If I had to guess, I would say that, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 850, quantity is 1, ISBN, item number 1. So it looks like if I had to guess, we probably don't have item number 1. So let me see what items we have. I think the table is items. Let's find out. So this is one of those issues with using the web-based interface for Oracle, is you won't be able to reference your sequence current value because of the way it handles sessions. Now I'm going to try something here. So I'm able to get this to work. So if I run these two statements together, right? So if I run these at the same time, well, actually, Oracle doesn't let me do that because it's the web-based interface. But if I run next value first, and then immediately after that, because they're both being selected from dual, it allows me to show the current value after I get the next value. So what I should be able to do, and I don't know if this will work or not, but let's give it a try, is see if we can run both of these statements together. So it'll do the insert first, then it'll do this next insert with the current value all at the same time. Again, I don't know if this will work or not. Yeah, it doesn't let us do that. But that's how we would have to do it. Let me see if I can clean this up a little bit and give it a try. Okay, I sort of tricked this into working. So this is how you have to run, because the problem is it comes down to user spaces. That sequence value, that next value is in. It has to all be run in a batch, right? So another way to do this, another way to run a batch, this doesn't let you run a batch right from the SQL commands window. So instead, if you go over to SQL scripts, you can create a SQL script, and I'll do this for you real quick to show you how to do this. So I'm going to go in here and actually I'll show you. I think I already have one created here. So I created a script. I just copy and pasted those two commands in right here, right? So here's my insert into orders next val, and here's where I insert into the order items with the current value, right? So if I click over here on the right, if I click run, it's going to come up and ask me if I really want to run this script, and I'm just going to say go ahead and run it now. It's going to take a second. All right, so I'm going to run it now. All right, there we go. So it completed, right? So here's the line where it shows it ran the script. Now I can validate that it worked. So if I go into SQL commands, let's take a look at the contents of that table. So I should have a new record now that's going to have the order number. So there should be my new order number. So let's see if we can find the order first. All right, there's my new order number 128. That's the one that it just inserted, right? So that's my new order. And if I look at order items. There should be an order item for order number 128. There it is. So there's order number 128, right? Item 1, and so forth and so on. You can see here's where I tested it before without having to have you watch all my troubleshooting, which only took a couple minutes. But so that works. So if you need to run something as a batch, you can certainly use the SQL command. So you can write your commands and just run it as one command, and then you can go and validate that everything worked the way it's supposed to work. And if it errored out, you can click on the little icon in the script so you can see what the errors were. All right, so let's move on. So we were able to create our sequence. We could also alter our sequence, right? So if I wanted to, I could change my order item sequence, right? So we're going to go ahead and change it to increment by 10 instead of just incrementing by 1. That should exist, that sequence. Didn't I create that one? Let me take a look real quick. Oh, I've got a typo here. It's orders, order number sequence. It's the little things that get you. There we go. All right, so now it should increment by 10. So let's go back to my SQL script. I'm going to run that again. And now instead of seeing 1029, which would be the next one in the series, I should now see an increment to 1038 because I'm incrementing by 10 now. So let's go ahead and run this. Go back to our commands, take a look at that table. All right, it incremented to 1038, so that worked. And when I'm all done, if I want to just go ahead and remove that sequence, so I can get my database back to where it was, I'm just going to go ahead and drop that sequence. It's going to get rid of it, and it's gone. So now I can't reference that sequence anymore. Okay, so let's see. What else do we want to do? All right, so instead of dealing with these cumbersome sequences, let's use identity instead. So we're going to create just a simple test table here to test identities. So, and this is in your textbook. I didn't talk about this in the PowerPoint. This is a new feature in Oracle 12. They added this feature, which works more like almost every other database engine on the planet. So here we're going to create a table. We already know how to create tables. I am only going to have 2 columns in this table. There's a column 1 and a column 2. Column 1 is going to be a number, and we're going to have generated as identity primary key, and that's going to auto-generate a identity each time we do an insert. Okay, so let's go ahead and create that table. Actually, I think our this database, yeah. So this this database is actually Oracle 11G, so it's not going to support this feature. So we won't be able to try this one. But if that worked, if we were on the latest version of Oracle, which would be nice, so you won't be able to do this in your homework. Your homework may ask you to do this, and I'll make sure that I send an announcement that you don't have to do this question. But if this worked, I'd be able to do an insert by only inserting column 2, and it would automatically generate the next field, right? The next value. And I could explicitly insert if I wanted to, right? So this is another way, and this is how most database engines work, where it automatically does a sequence for you. In older versions of Oracle, you had to write a trigger that you would insert a blank value for an identity field, and then the trigger would go and call the sequence, create the next sequence, and insert that for you on your behalf. So it's good to understand that that's how it works, because you may have to work with older versions of databases where you have to do that still. But I would say if you're using Microsoft SQL Server, PostgreSQL, MySQL, pretty much all those modern database engines, you won't have to do this. And if you're using Oracle, if it's 11 or older, then you would have to do this. I think it was 11G or older, you'll have to do this, but with 12 and newer, you won't have to do this. So it's a good option, indexes. Again, I don't have the newer database engine installed to show you because I'm trying to use the tool that you guys are using. But they have an updated Oracle Application Express, the one that we're using for this course. If you happen to install Oracle, I know in the beginning of the course I told you you could have installed Oracle on your own, if you installed Oracle 12G Express, then you'll be able to do this exercise and you'll be able to actually do this. All right, let's look at the next topic. So if you recall, I talked about a couple different types of indexes. So here we have the customers table rather. So here I'm doing a query where the zip code is 49006, but let's go ahead and take a look at a list of all of our customers, or at least most of them. And you'll see under the region field, we have some pretty limited values over here. If you recall, there's not much diversity in the region, and the best type of index to use when we don't have a lot of diversity, if you recall, was a bitmap index. So to add a bitmap index on the region field, I'm going to show you the command to do that. So this is how I would create that bitmap index. Let's see if that works, if it creates that index for us. There we go. So now I have the index. So now I could do queries based on that field, and it would certainly be a lot faster if I had a lot of customers. You won't see it in this test database because we only have a few customers. We would have to have, probably hundreds of thousands of customers to really see a difference here. So that's how you create an index. This is the command to create it. I created one. If I did not want to create a bitmap index, if I wanted to be a B-tree index, I would not have to use the bitmap keyword. I could just leave that out, and it would have been a B-tree. But that wouldn't have made much sense here because there's a very, very low cardinality here, right? Not much diversity. I would expect you to know for this course, for a quiz or a test, that if I asked you when a bitmap index would be appropriate, you want to make sure you understand that it's appropriate when you have a low cardinality, right? A very low diversity in possible values in that field. And that the B tree is more appropriate when you have a lot of diversity in the fields. So as an example, let's take a look at the books table. So taking a look at books, let's say I was frequently sorting based on the cost of books. Well, the cost of books has a pretty high diversity, right? That's a high level of cardinality. So I might, in this case, create an index that's not a bitmap index. Instead, it's a B-tree index. And like I said, if you leave out bitmap, it's going to implicitly be a B-tree index. So this would create an index called books profit that is retail minus cost. So now it's going to create an index of retail minus cost. So if I try to calculate retail minus cost, it'll have an index that it can use to figure out which rows meet that criteria. So if I'm constantly looking up my profit, the profit level of my books, this would make it a lot more efficient. Let's go ahead and run that index. There we go. So now I have an index. So pretty straightforward. So that's how we do indexes. Now, let's say we wanted to, taking a look at that books table. Let me bring up the books table again. So the primary key on this table is the ISBN. And as I said in the the more theoretical lecture, if I inserted a new record here, and let's say I inserted a new record and the ISBN started with a, let's say it started with a 2, right? It would by default get just tacked on as the last record. But then I have to do a full table scan to find that ISBN in the future. Wouldn't it make more sense if these ISBNs were in the right order, right? If they were always in the order by the ISBN number. So I could do that by creating that table, and let me just show you the code here. So I'm going to create a new version of that table called books2, and again, I have the same field names in here, but what we've done here is we made that the ISBN is the constraint, is the primary key constraint, which we already know how to do. We've done that before, but we add one extra keyword. We add the organization index, right? So we're going to add the organization index keyword. So let's go ahead and create this little table. All right, so that table is created. Okay, so if I did this right, so this is the results from selecting from our books table, right? So here's all of our ISBNs, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an insert into books2. And I'm going to list my columns. Now, here's the thing. When I do this insert into books2, let me just make this bigger so you can see it. When I do this insert into books2, it's going to select these records in the order that you saw below, right? Where the ISBNs are in no particular order. But as I insert it, because I did a organization index, it should create an index that orders those, puts those in the correct order. Let's see if, so let's go ahead and insert some records into books too, so we have some records in there. All right, there we go. So we inserted our 14 records. So I'm going to clear those statements there. So let's just do select star from books. So this was the original table that we had before. There we go. So you can see there's our ISBNs. But then let me do select star from books 2. Now take a look at the ISBNs when I run this. So right now we have ISBN 105, then 040, then 498, 8843. Now if I just do that select statement without doing anything to order this any differently, you can see that even though I inserted it exactly the same way, as I inserted it, it reordered them by the ISBN. So now everything is in here in the order of the ISBN. And as I said before, if I were using a sequence, right, if I were inserting records with a sequence number, then I wouldn't have to worry about these records being reordered by the index. But since they're, since this is a number that we're, the natural key is going to have to reorder it as we insert them in different order. But you get the idea here how this type of index works. All right, so that was the organization index. Okay, so let's see, what else do we need to do here? The last thing we want to do is synonyms, right? So I talked about synonyms in the lecture. So let's try to create a synonym. I'm going to create a public synonym. Now, if you recall, a synonym, let's see if this works. I haven't tried this with this yet, with this interface yet. So let's say I have that order table. I think in your book they use the example of creating a synonym for orders called order entry. Right? We don't actually have a table called order entry, so we're going to create a synonym called order entry that's going to be for our orders table. So now, if I try to use order entry as to reference the object, it's going to automatically know that I'm actually looking for orders. So hopefully this allows you to create a synonym. Yeah, I don't have sufficient privileges. I would have to log in as an administrator to do this. So we don't actually have the capability to create a synonym. So with this tool, so I will post in the announcements that you may not be able to create a synonym with your account. I think if you log in with your oh no, I am logged in as an admin. So yeah, it doesn't matter. We don't have permission to do synonyms. So you won't be able to do that. If you installed Oracle, you'll be able to play with this. If you installed your own instance of 12G, but on the web-based tool, we don't have the permissions to do synonyms. I was kind of dubious as to whether or not this tool would let us do it, and it looks like it doesn't. So we'll have to assume that it works, right? But if it did work, then I would be able to reference the orders table by using the order entry synonym. So just two things didn't work exactly as planned, right? You have to use the SQL script method if you want to do the values, the current value for your sequences. You won't be able to do the identity. You won't be able to use the identity feature because that started in Oracle 12G and we're on 11 right now with this tool, unless you already installed it. And you won't be able to do the synonym, but everything else you'll be able to do. All right, if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.